Hi, welcome to Academic Market Insights. Today's topic is super exciting because it talks about the NFL. We are going to be looking at events that happened over this past weekend with Saunders and the draft. Now, we care about this. We're very interested in football in general, as we're both properly dressed for this video. But we're also concerned about how students behave in interviews. So this is something that we'd like to discuss and dissect really what happened and talk about some of the things that students can do to make sure they're not in this situation. Um, and if you like this video, please hit like. And if you have not hit subscribe, please subscribe. I'm really excited about this discussion. I like the NFL. Big fan of the Chicago Bears. Go Bears! I've even taught my 4-year-old to say Boo Packers. That's right, he says Boo Packers. My 8-year-old, he's decided he's a Vikings fan. And I think he's just doing that to test boundaries at the moment.
Uh, uh, if that's the most testing boundaries you get, you're doing a heck of a job. But
Yeah, I feel like
the
it's
bike,
boundary.
where does he like the colors? Does he like the? I
I
mean,
think it's the colors.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was I was a big Vikings fan. I grew up where we didn't have NFL really in Memphis. Memphis was the biggest city in the United States that didn't have an NFL team within 400 miles or something silly like that. When I was growing up, we were just the South is much more of a college football space anyway. But I was a big Fran Tarkenton fan back in the day, and I ended up working in the same high rise as him in Atlanta, and I was shocked to see he was actually like a half inch shorter than I am.
Oh,
I know that's not what you picture in this day and age. All
no.
right, I'm going to go way off track. Shedeur Sanders. I think everybody's kind of familiar with the draft process, and I'm not. There are a lot of people that are taking pleasure in this. I think it's unfortunate that it's happened. I would hate for something so high profile to happen to me as well. But as the process was playing itself out, and I'm not saying that when the draft started, I was like, this guy's not going to get drafted to the fifth round, but I could just see kind of how he was acting in the interview process, and it really is an interview process from the end of the football season or the college football season to the draft, and there are some things that go along with going through the draft process, but it's very similar when it comes down to it, to what a lot of our undergrads have gone through. Most of ours seem to have jobs from Kelly, but what our undergrads have gone through. And, basically they may go, we've got a career fair. We had a career fair a couple of weeks ago. You might go to that. That's the first step. Try to make a good impression, have a first interview, and then go through a gamut of interviews, and then hopefully get some sort of job. That's what happens in the NFL as well, as players interview with teams, and then they go to the draft combine where a lot of their skills are measured. And then we've got draft day, which was I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up this one. No, don't get excited about it. Do you know where the draft was this year?
I thought it was either in Green Bay,
It
wasn't
was in
it?
Green Bay. So why are
Yeah.
you excited about that?
I just like draft day.
Okay, draft day.
It's just,
I always thought draft day was really cool as well. So um, so what we want to do, and then draft day, and he didn't even act right on draft day. So so just a review of who Shedeur is and what his career was. He also, I don't include this, but my understanding is I think he made $4 million in NIL last year as a college student. I think as a fifth round draft pick, he's going to take a pay cut. So that
ooh.
might be the cruddiest thing that I say in this video, because I really don't want to pick on him. And then I do want to run through just some of the things that he did and how it would relate to somebody coming out of undergrad that's interviewing for jobs. Because I've a decade plus of dealing with undergrads, and I've seen just about every mistake that can be made. Now, Shedeur Sanders, he played quarterback at Jackson State in Colorado. He followed his father from Jackson State to Colorado, started for 2 years, put up some really good numbers. Was at a program that had not done particularly well for some time. Went 9-4 last year. So yeah, he was showing some solid skills. He was expected to be the first round pick in the NFL draft. Coming out of the combine, he was rated number 3 among quarterbacks. I'm not sure which how many quarterbacks were chosen in front of him, but several were. And he has a lot of talent. He had very high expectations, but he wasn't drafted until the 5th round. And a lot of people are blaming his father being very vocal, and there's a little bit of that. But some of the things that I've read about Shadeur's behavior between the end of the college football season and draft day, uh, they make me think that we got to lay the blame on this 23-year-old as well. So the process that I ran through, you interview with teams. There are things that leaked out about some of his interviews. You go to the combine. There are 3 stages in the combine. And you do talk to teams, and they are watching you like a freaking hawk at the combine. They watch how you interact with other players. And there are videos that have come out of him talking smack with other players. That like just just not being very professional at the combine, and refusing to do some of the things at the combine that everybody does. And then on draft day, set up his own home studio to and bought and had a hat from all 32 teams. He was ready, and he got to use that studio, I guess, on the last day of the draft. So there were lots of rumors going around that his interviews were going fairly poorly, and he would interview with the head coach of various teams, and the 2 teams that needed a quarterback had him visit, and he passed on them, or they passed on him. Excuse me, no, he didn't pass on anybody. They passed on him. I think it was the Giants and the Falcons. But those were 2 teams that needed a quarterback very badly. He ended up at a team that really doesn't need a quarterback. He left a very bad impression. One team presented how the offense would be run with him, and he said that wouldn't work for me.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's
So that that won't work for me. Well,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we need
Uh,
somebody who it will work for.
Yeah, okay. Well, we understand, but that's just he came away. I think. I mean, these rumors are out in the press. It was the Giants coach, and apparently, the interviews did not go particularly well. At the draft combine, there's 3 parts of the combine. They measure you. They check out some of your skills, and then they have you work out. He refused to participate in the workout part. And an NFL assistant, they do interview players there, shared that Sanders had one of the worst formal interviews among the prospects. That's directly from and and we don't know what he said, but spending a lot of time dealing with people in their early 20s, and some that have a very high opinion of themselves, I can just see an absolute arrogance that he picked up from his father. Dion has earned the right to be arrogant.
Right,
He's a Hall of Famer. He
right.
earned it. I don't, I haven't done any digging. I probably won't because I don't care that much. I'd love to know how Dion handled the draft combine process. Did he
Sure.
show up, do what he was supposed to do, and get drafted by the Cowboys? I think he got drafted by the Cowboys. Or did he just say, "Whoever wants me, come take me"? I'm not gonna. I doubt he did that.
Well, and
But Mhm.
you said that he didn't participate in the workout. Um, that's kind of some of the basic things. And I've had very small opportunities to participate in different things with professional sports. I always was just happy to be there.
Yeah,
And I get that I'm not a professional athlete, but the few times that I have been able to be, well, I did something with the Chicago Bulls. I was always just, like I said, just happy to be a participant. I wasn't, the expression, I'm happy to be a contender. I wasn't truly a contender. Nobody was going to pick me for these things. But again, just happy to be there.
so I switched over, and you can
Mhm.
actually see athleticism is what, and they had to estimate it because he refused to participate in that part.
Yeah. And working out's fun. That's the good stuff, right?
Yeah. So,
So it'd be like if somebody was applying to be at Goldman Sachs and Goldman Sachs said, okay, well, here's
well,
a study.
that gets even better. And it's so there we are with the combine. And then on draft day, he did, and I'll get to that little Goldman Sachs story. I didn't want to say the bank, but who cares?
No, this is a
Should
different story. This is a different
no,
story.
it's not. So Shedeur, he built his own studio instead of attending the draft live. That should be live, like most players, and he did go undrafted until the final day. So as far as the lessons, and you know, try to show some humility. We do teach at one of the top business schools in the country, and there are some. We've got a lot of very exceptional students. Um, and a lot of them pay attention to the financial markets on a regular basis, et cetera, probably trade a little for themselves, et cetera. There is a real difference between actually, you know, participating in the markets from day to day, being in the arena from day to day, and having your livelihood depend upon it.
Right.
And the people you are interviewing with have done that. And if you're interviewing with them, they've probably done that fairly well and successfully. I worked at a couple of hedge funds. I had some pretty good success at a couple of them, and I would participate in a lot of interviews. And I had people talk down to me in interviews, and I'm like, I work here, you don't. You know,
Right.
you know, so there. And then we went through 1 year at one of the hedge funds I worked through or worked at. We decided we were going to do nothing but hire Ivy League kids. It was one of the worst decisions that we've ever made. In fact, I've always said I would take a kid from Loyola or DePaul who worked his way through college before a Harvard kid anytime. And that process proved me right because a lot of them acted like we should be honored that they decided to come work for us. And that's not, and it was a complete burnout of a class. Um, and really had a huge negative impact on me because none of them would listen to me, and they were supposed to be working for me. A very frustrating process all around.
And it's
So
one of the reasons why I like the financial markets. To some extent, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're making money for the firm, that's all that matters. So
mhm,
all of these shenanigans that people are playing, if you're not performing, if you're not, I don't, none of that stuff. So why would you hire somebody who's being obnoxious to you unless they came in and they said, well, here's my transactions for the last 2 years. This is how much I've made. And then again, if they're even doing that, they're not talking down to you. They're being just very straightforward, a matter of fact. But it's actually something I like about the financial markets. My former boss used to work for the head of education at UBS, and there was a gentleman that complained about another woman, and he said, all she does is read the paper all day. And his response was, the 1 hour of work that she does is more valuable to the firm than the full day that you provide us.
love it.
So, and
Absolutely love
again,
it.
getting to your point about Deion Sanders, he earned that
He
right.
did. He did. But and I just I think he may have done a bit of a disservice to his kids, not
Yeah.
you know, not not
Unintentionally.
not saying now go there, do the job. And there's been a lot of comparisons to Deion Sanders and Archie Manning managing the
Right.
process for his sons. Again, I haven't dug into it, but I'll bet you both of the Manning sons did everything they were supposed to do at the combine. In fact, having grown up with Archie Manning down in New Orleans, which was one of the NFL teams close to Memphis, I think he's such a serious person that he would have that he definitely would have made sure that they were well behaved and did everything that they were supposed to do
Right.
going through the process, regardless of what their last name was.
Well, and it's
Um,
part of being a classy person.
yeah, yeah. So, the second bullet point here really does relate to some of the things that I think Shedeur did. I don't think different NFL teams have different schemes that they run, different types of offenses that they run. My understanding is he really was not familiar with three of the teams that wanted to talk to him directly. Didn't really know what their process was. Showed up very unprepared in that right in that aspect of the interviewing process, which turned off an awful lot of people. He just kind of assumed that almost that he would show up and they would change their style around how he played.
Right.
Now, when your dad's the coach, that happens,
Sure.
and your dad's not going to be the coach. And then the parents thing, you started to mention it. I did have a former intern that was interviewing at a very large investment bank, and when they got the offer, they did say they wanted to discuss it with their parents a bit, and the offer got rescinded on the spot.
Yeah.
And that's because we have seen in the professional world parents calling people up and complaining about their son, about their child's bonuses and things like that.
So,
And we don't want that.
no.
I told you before we got started. I like to say that I will never speak to parents. You're college students. I'm dealing with you. I'm not dealing with your parent. I dealt with one parent once who wanted to talk about what their kid was wanting to do career wise. And I felt like that was appropriate, but I don't. You're an adult. He's an adult,
Yes.
and here's why. And this is unfortunate, but as we sit here on Monday after draft weekend and everything, the headline screams Deion Sanders wants to attend first meeting with Cleveland Browns. You don't want that,
No.
you, you just don't want that. So
So,
there are some lessons in here. Be your own person, have some humility, understand where you're going to go interview. And unless unless your father or mother happen to be within the industry that you're interviewing in, I think it is appropriate to bring them up there. If one of my kids, let's just say one of my daughters decided she wanted to go into the financial markets, which is not happening, but if they had decided they wanted to do that, I think it would make sense for them to mention, oh yeah, by the way, my father um, worked at hedge funds for some time and did education at SIBO and now is a professor at Indiana. I think there's nothing wrong with that because that demonstrates that they grew up in a household that understands how the financial markets work. So I don't think that blanket statement there, I probably should have softened it up a little bit. So,
but you wouldn't be a part of the process. They'd be telling them, the interviewer, about
right,
the,
right,
yeah. But
right.
so the story I actually wanted to say was, imagine if you're going for an interview, and this has happened to me several times, and you're asked to do a case study. And then this is like at Combine and where you didn't participate, and you said to the firm, "Oh no, no, I'm not going to do the case study. It's just not happening." Like,
We
I
were at SIBO, we were interviewing three people out of college, and we actually had one person say that they didn't want to do the case study.
I said, "Okay."
Where I wasn't in charge of that process. I actually thought the case study was a bit much. It was like a week of work
Oof.
for a junior marketing job, so I thought that was a bit extreme. So there. So all right, kids, keep your parents out of the process. Behave. Don't don't overbling it. Don't start talking about your rap album at your interview when it's about being a financial analyst or something different.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw in some other information that's different. It's always appropriate to talk about the Chicago Bears in an interview. Always
Especially
appropriate.
if you're interviewing with a Chicago firm, it probably would not hurt you to talk about the Bears a little bit.
I had an interview that went 4 hours because we started talking about the Chicago Bears. And I thought, and at one point I remember thinking, oh man, what did I do? And the interview ended and everybody had left the office. And I thought, okay,
At the end of the day, what happened here?
what
So there you go.
happened? And yes,
All
I did
right.
get the job.
So all right, you're
So,
taking us home on this one.
okay. Thank you everybody for joining us. This has been a fun topic. We thoroughly enjoy having you here. We enjoy doing these almost, they're financial markets, but they're a little little more life-centered. And we do that because we genuinely care for our students. We want to see them succeed. We want to help give them those guidance for that. So if you like this video, please hit subscribe or subscribe, that's down. And if you liked it, hit like. We're also open to constructive criticism. However, I warn you, if somebody says that Walter Payton wasn't a good football player, I will be pretty disappointed. So, and we might have to do a video then on why Walter Payton is the best football player.
Exactly.
So if you want to see that, you can just say, you need to criticize us. With long preamble to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.